I'd like to welcome our invited and honoured guests, our members of the media, our sponsor representatives. I did see Eugene Brown, there we are, from Dunlop, a long-standing supporter of squash in South Africa, to all our administrators, national players. Ladies and gentlemen, protocol observed. Just before I introduce the top table, I'd like to just tell you that the restrooms are straight through the passage on the left-hand side. There are refreshments on the left-hand side at the back of the room. And we're going to go into the introductions, make the announcement. There'll be some comments from the top table. We'll go into Q&As with the media, and then we'll have a picture opportunity before we do the one-on-one with radio and television. So it's all under control. As you leave, there is a nice gift courtesy of our newly announced sponsor, and all the media will be sent releases from BLD with free-to-use caption pics courtesy of Gallo, and sound bites will also be included, and that's following the announcement. Right, let me introduce our top table. I'll go from the left to right. Ian Caldwell is the chairman of Parkview Squash, passionate squash player and a supporter of the game. And what a fabulous facility. If any of you have been to Parkview, it's just an amazing facility. And to Ian, welcome. Thank you so much. And to anybody from Parkview, you're very welcome here as well. Next to Ian, on his left-hand side, is Thabo Nzima, a SOAR Group Manager for South African Operations. And to all his colleagues here, thank you once again for joining us for this fabulous facility and for what you're about to announce. Bla Kutsia, President of Squash South Africa. Nice to have you here. This is your game. And we also have our national manager, Jennifer Sawyer, here, and some Squash South Africa board members and staff. I see Rochelle Husson has joined us. Thank you so much. And Rochelle's a very special woman. You know, she, as a matter of interest, other than being on the squash board, Squash South Africa board, she's a well-established safeguarding officer. Now, for those that don't know what that is, it's a very important position in any event, and she was at the World Junior Squash Champs, the safeguarding officer, not only for the World Champs, but also for Team South Africa. So nice to have you with us, Rochelle. Barry Hendricks, President of SASCOC, past President of Squash South Africa, and a life member of Squash South Africa. I believe a regular player at Jeppe, right? And to you and your CEO, Naziba Jafta, also a former squash league player from Kabaga, welcome and thank you for your support. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to lastly introduce you to Craig van der Walt. And he's going to be the first one to speak. And a lot of what is happening today is thanks to Craig. And Craig is literally a legend in the squash world. He's part of Squash South Africa. He's very much part of Parkview. And he was a top player, most of you will know. And I know that he's so passionate about this game. I think this announcement is very much what Craig has always wanted, what was always dreamed about, and knows that it'll be very good for South Africa. So without any further ado, I hand over to Craig.
Bruce, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for being here today. A special thank you to the BLD group that made this possible. What is news without it being spread around as it's going to be today? So thank you very much. I'm the most excited person in the room and the most excited person in squash at the moment, because this has been a dream of mine for a long time. The official announcement of the ASOR Squash series of tournaments in South Africa. We really look forward to working with organizations that partner with us to make sure this can happen, and that is Squash SA and SASCOC as well as the PSA who control the world rankings. The world rankings are very important, and as such we have a starter series of tournaments, 4 tournaments before the end of March. The first day of play will be the 12th of February 2026. These tournaments are important for our players in South Africa to start their way on the world rankings, earn their first points, and get into the bigger tournaments that we'll be running later in the year. In those tour events, our aim is to provide about 50% representation from South African players and 50% from foreign players, bringing that experience to South Africa and giving our players the opportunity to compete internationally but on home soil. It's a very, very important thing for our players. The squash community are all extremely thankful to ASOL for making this possible. Nothing would be possible without this fantastic and generous sponsorship. And our sincere thanks to ASOL. And the person that drives the whole thing behind ASOL is Mr. Desaka. So without that support, this would not have been possible. So thank you from my side, and squash in South Africa, thank you very, very much.
Thanks very much, Craig. And I think what you said is so right. I've been involved in a lot of sports, and I must tell you that it is very, very important to give opportunity to your up-and-coming professional players on home soil, because it's often the case that we're so far away from the rest of the world. And I see it in tennis also, how our players battle. And if you look at a person like Lloyd Harrison, Philip Henning, Wayne Ferreira and Amanda Kutzer, they had to travel immensely around the world in order to get those opportunities to give them a shot of being a professional. So this is really a good announcement. Ian, Parkview is going to play a big role in this whole series. And just as a matter of interest, Craig is the director of the series. So that's his role here. He's got so many caps on, he could work for Fabani. But honestly, his role is going to be the director of the series. I don't think there's a more fitting person. But Ian, if you could just say a few words on behalf of Parkview, you're the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Morning, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for taking the time out to be with us. My name's Ian Caldwell. I'm a very proud chairman of Parkview Squash Club, a fellow squash player, and also an employee of ASOL. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge those who've made this remarkable club what it is. The Granger family, the Sacco family, our board, our sponsors, and of course Craig for your tireless leadership at Parkview. Parkview's story began back in the mid-1970s when Chris and Jean Granger envisioned a club that blended community spirit together with a modern, welcoming squash environment. Then in 1980, that vision came to life when six glass-back courts were built. And then back in 1982 and 1984, they were extended to create a wonderful facility boasting six glass-back courts, a vibrant restaurant, a bar, and also a shop. We then fast forward to 2006, which is when our relationship developed with ASOL, and through Desmond Sacco's love for squash and for the club itself, this partnership was created. And over the past 20 years, ASOL stood alongside us to help expand its leagues, the junior pathways, and the community presence under Craig's exceptional leadership. And to speak more on this partnership, it's my pleasure to introduce Thabo Nzima, who is ASOL's Group Manager for South African Operations, to tell us more about ASOL. Thanks, Thabo.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks, Bruce. And greetings to all. ASOL's story began nearly a century ago in 1928 when Kwido Sacco recognized the promise of manganese field in the Northern Cape. What started with a single discovery soon grew into a thriving enterprise, moving from strength to strength, from manganese at Black Rock to paraffinite at Wonderstone, and later to iron ore in Kumani. Progress continued under Kwido's son, Mr. Desmond Sako, as Ian has mentioned, who joined the business in 1968 and became chairman in 1992. Under his leadership, the company broadened its commodities, venturing into chrome mining at Dwas Refir in the early 2000s. Today, ASO stands as a global and diversified mining investor, marketer, and operator spanning across America, Africa, Asia, and Europe. Yet, through nearly a century of growth and evolution, one thing has remained constant: our commitment to resilience, long-term thinking, and making a meaningful contribution to the communities we serve. Just as ASO has evolved through vision and dedication, Parkview has its own legacy of growth. From its early foundation to becoming one of the most active and community-centered squash clubs in the country. Both ASO and Parkview believe in building strong foundation and nurturing talent. For us, that means sustainable operations and long-term investment. For Parkview, it means developing players of all ages, growing the sport, and creating opportunities for the next generation. Our partnership is now 20 years strong, and it stands as a testament to what shared values can achieve. We are proud to support a club that mirrors our commitment to excellence, community, and progress. And today, as we mark this milestone, we are excited for what the next chapter of this partnership will bring for South Africa squash. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to both of you. It's a family affair, this. You spoke about the chairman, but the chairman of Parkview also is part of ASO. So it's fantastic how they've committed themselves to the sport and how this sponsorship now is really in good hands, because I often get very concerned, being in my role, how sponsors are there, but they're not always there, and they last not as long as they should. And I know that there's been a long relationship, and this series is going to go from strength to strength. Blah, you are the president of Squash South Africa, and I'm very, very pleased that this whole series has been working with you in making it work, and there's no hijacking and conflicts, because it's very important with Squash South Africa look after the game of squash in the country. So a question for you, Blah, is obviously every federation strives, as I said earlier, to get top players ranked on the world rankings and excel on the pro tours. How important, Blah, is the ASO series in assisting you with that and the development and promotion of the game?
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here and for this great opportunity that we have. I think I'm just a little bit behind Craig in terms of my excitement about this whole series. I can proudly say I'm probably the second most excited person in the room. This whole series is such a breakthrough and such a bold step to our development of squash in the country. I think we will see that in the future, and we will look back at this moment and just ponder about it and think this was the changing moment in our whole history of squash in the recent times. Our aim is to broaden the base of squash, to bring more players into the game, but those players need heroes. And this ASO series is the whole event that will show them what's possible, and that will create these heroes, that create opportunities for players that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to become part of the professional circuit, because it's so expensive to do that. Now you can do it on home soil and progress through the ranks, and then eventually get to the points and on the world rankings where you can get access to the big tournaments, and then it's worthwhile to travel and spend the money on that. So I think the possibilities that this whole series unlocks is just immense, and I want to thank ASO for for the commitment to this, and we hope that it will be a long-lasting relationship. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Blah. Nasipa, welcome. I saw you coming, CEO of SASCOC, close colleague of the President. Barry, obviously you've been very busy here. You've got Commonwealth coming up, you've got Olympics, it's all happening, so SASCOC's buzzing. With squash now part of the Olympics, and we were part of that announcement where we did the photo shoot. This announcement, Barry, must be welcome news for SASCOC.
Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Assure in this announcement, in this partnership, Craig, Jennifer, and the board members. As Blaar has indicated, the development program consists of various phases. The bottom phase, which is the club and the schools phase or level. This is the apex, apart from Team SA, and I see I've got a Team SA representative here as well. Just below that is the high performance program, and this ties in with the high performance program and the pathway that SASCOC envisages. And this pathway is critical to the establishment of role players, as Blaar has indicated, but more important for the development of our own athletes to compete against the world's best. And in so doing, they prepare then for this very important event, the LA 2028 Olympics. And we hope that the decisions taken by World Squash will enable us to participate in that event. But to prepare for that now, 3 years to go, is an important component in the development of our top athletes, because that will give them a chance then to gain more experience and to perform better in other international tournaments where South Africa will be gaining those points. There are several events that are going to be taking place over the year and in which squash is going to be part of. And just in 2 weeks' time, less than 2 weeks' time, we leave for the Winter Olympics. After that, it's the Commonwealth Games. Then it's the Youth Games in the Olympic Youth Games in Accra, and then at the end of that, the Youth Games in Mozambique. So it's going to be a full year. And we want to work with squash, with our high performance program. The CEO is part and parcel of that. We want to ensure that your athletes are part and parcel of that in future. And the only way that can happen is if we see that there's potential of your athletes to become one of the world's best. South Africa has done this in the past, where we've had world champions, and I think this forms part of that new strategy to develop the champions of the world again in future, so that when we compete against Egypt and the other major countries, we can hold our heads up high, and it starts here. So thank you so much, Ashur. Thank you so much to Squash South Africa, and we look forward to partnering with you to ensuring that this grows even further. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Barry. We had an apology from Dewald van Niekerk. He was going to join us, and obviously he's our highest ranked squash player. And I think it's quite important that we have some players here who obviously will benefit from this announcement. So Tegan Russell, will you do me a favor? Can you come and answer a question? I was going to pose this question because for the media it's important. You, the players, you, the beneficiaries. Oh, are you right there? Okay, cool. So the question I was going to ask Dewald was that he's the country's highest internationally ranked player, and he's been traveling around the world with some impressive results, and it's been quite difficult to get those results in that world ranking by traveling like Haley Ward did. So how important, from a player's point of view, and I know I've put you on the spot, but when you're a player, you've got to know, you never know when you're going to be put on the spot. How important do you think it is for players, this announcement?
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest announcement I've ever been part of. So this is a huge blessing. Obviously, we are so grateful to Assur for this opportunity. I know, just speaking to Dewald and Haley, one of the big things is it's an extremely lonely journey when you have to constantly be away from home, you're away from your coaches, you kind of put on the back foot because you're in other people's territory. So bringing that sort of tournament here, or the series of tournaments here, is absolutely incredible. Also for like myself and Dio and the other Squash South Africa players to be able to get our rankings high enough so that we can also enter tournaments overseas, go and compete. And also, as I was just chatting to Jen, going to the World Cup, we can see that Squash South Africa is slightly behind in terms of we're not used to competing as much as other people. So we don't have that match experience. We don't have, as Craig was saying, bringing international players onto our soil, our turf. We don't have that opportunity, and now we do have that opportunity. So I think going forward, just the Squash South Africa team competing internationally, we're going to be in way better stead going forward. So this is an amazing opportunity.
Thank you so much. That is I thought you'd prepared that. Sure, well done. Okay, thank you. So we've said a lot from the top, and welcome to all of our live stream viewers. There's quite a few coming through on the Squash South Africa and Parkview Facebook pages. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to this announcement. I'm going to open up for any questions that might be asked by any of the media. We will have the one-on-ones afterwards, but are there any questions? And it doesn't have to be media, it can be anybody in the house. You can ask a question that might just be important for you to know, or for everybody, because every question is valued when it comes to these media conferences. Is there anybody that'd like to ask a question?
If Craig can just explain to us, perhaps, Bruce, exactly how it's going to work in practice, venue structure, the points awarded, and how many tournaments, how do you build up to a final, etc.
Thank you, David. We start with 4 PSA satellite tournaments, which are the starter tournaments. Players that have no points at present can get access to those tournaments. By the end of March, those 4 will be completed, and then we move to the 3K tournaments. Now you're into a tour event, and you've got slightly different conditions under which the tournaments are run. They're all controlled by the PSA in the UK, their office. So the draws are done, and we just roll out the tournament here. So we'll have a series of those, and as the players in South Africa's ranking increases, we'll up the ante, the number of tournaments. We've provisionally set out 11 events, and that's aside from our SA Nationals. There's a few extra opportunities that we can have our junior nationals in the 2 age groups, under 17 and under 19, and we can have our under 23 national championships with a Africa Open or a SA Open as well, which will also carry ranking points. So it's very valuable to give the younger group of players a little start to get into these tournaments. Typically when our players go to compete, they have competed much less if they're 18 years old than their oppositions from other countries. So we're trying to close that gap and give them the opportunity to compete here in South Africa before they go overseas and compete.
Is the big issue getting those first points that you qualify for more PSA events overseas where more points are not?
Yes, it's not a big issue. It's the bottom line. It's critical. If you don't have the points, you simply won't be considered a part of that tournament. You have to. The tournament gets put out on the website. The players enter. The top 24 or 32, whatever the draw size is, get in, and the rest don't make it. It's as simple as that.
Conversely, I'm sure a few guys who earn in pounds and euros will be eyeing these events as well. Is it only for South Africans? How will the structure work in terms of other interests?
The tournaments are open to anyone that is a PSA member, and 2 days after registering the first event with PSA, I got an email from a Chinese women's squash player who's living in America. It's unclear if she's a student there or playing professionally there, but players all around the world are looking for an opportunity to get into a tournament and earn some points. So we will be getting plenty of foreign participation. In 2014 and 2015, when we started PSA tournaments, restarted tournaments in South Africa, one of the young Egyptian players that came out was Ahmed Ashush, and he has now become the Egyptian national junior coach. And we've been communicating with him, and he's very excited about the tournament and the opportunity, because it's also a lot simpler for players from Egypt to come straight down the continent on the same sort of timeline and play here with our friendliness in terms of our currency and our costs, as opposed to going to America, Australia, and elsewhere in Europe.
Question for Barry, please. In terms of, I know that positions are going to be very difficult to get for LA. Obviously, they'll go to rankings and then regions like Africa. This kind of event, where more points are on offer, how will that assist South Africa for a stronger case to be made out for more positions for Africa to enter, to go to LA?
Look, we're still waiting for World Squash to give us the format, and I think Jennifer and Squash SA will be able to answer that even better. But what we're going to try and push for is at least 2 teams from Africa to try and represent this continent. And I think that can be one of the strategies that we employ going forward. But that is really a question for World Squash and for SA Squash.
Craig, just going back to the question that David asked, I mean, a lot of foreigners might travel out here because of the rand, the value of the rand, etc., etc. How do we safeguard positions for our South African players? Are there wildcard opportunities? I don't know how squash works.
Yeah.
And will there be a qualifying event which allows players that might not get in to qualify?
The qualifying events are not part of the circuit. The PSA don't have that facility anymore. That has been replaced by the satellite events. And that's why we're having, in February, 3 consecutive weekends, we're running those satellite events to get all our local players that need that extra point or 2, the opportunity to get into the other ones. The rest of it is pitching the tournament at the correct level. So as the ranking changes, we have to assess where our players are on the ranking and what grade tournament would be most suitable for 50% or so representation in those tournaments. So it's a work in progress, and with 2 months' notice, we'll be able to adjust the position of the tournament, the level of the tournament, to suit our players and the international players that come.
And are there wild cards?
There are 4 wildcard spaces in a 24 draw. So yes, we will be reserving wildcard places in the $3,000 tournaments for our Order of Merit winners in the satellite series.
And then, is there any other questions? I've got a venue. Venues, have you chosen venues or cities, or is it all going to be Parkview at this
It's
stage?
very largely based at Parkview.
Okay.
Yeah, 99%.
Answers the question. Is there anybody else that would like
Just perhaps, Blaar, I know that Squash South Africa has been working extremely hard on getting the profile of the game higher. I mean, we know it's a massively popular participant sport, but in terms of viewership and people attending, now with more events at a higher level, with more at stake, how big and important is this event for Squash South Africa?
It's absolutely massive. I think what we've seen in the past few years, especially at our national championships, the viewership and the exposure was already quite big, and it shows that people are interested in this really high performance squash, and I think this will just elevate it even more, especially with international participation, because we don't see our own players playing against the internationals so often, and I think this is going to give us that platform, and that will really expand our growth even more and our exposure to the whole community.
Okay, so are there any other questions at all? Okay, thank you very much once again to everybody for attending and for the top table for being here and for answering questions. We are going to do a picture now, an official picture with all 5 of you, if you don't mind, and then afterwards we'll do interviews, breakaway, English, Afrikaans, vernacular, and you can just put your request through to Sia or to myself, and then as you leave, there's something to eat and drink on the left-hand side. you so much for attending, and we look forward to your support and look forward to further announcement on the details of this circuit, which I think is very exciting. Okay, thanks. If you can just stand up for a picture there. Thank you very much.
Just on the side. That's it. We can all get in, and I'm just going to get 2 squash rackets to make it look like a squash racket. Who's not sponsored? Are you sponsored?
Definitely not.
Okay, so you want to get close together, please, and let's.
That's better. You got some smiles on there.
Thank you. Yeah, you got us.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Tom. Can I have...